In this video today, we're talking about altered states of consciousness and can breathwork really take you there? Now, this is exciting because there is so much potential with breathwork. And I think when you listen to this, you're going to get really curious about having some of those longer, deeper changes in how your brain is working. So we're going to explore exactly what they are and what kinds of altered states of consciousness, and really give you that definition of what we're talking about and the kind of breathworks you can incorporate to achieve these states yourself. So first of all, what do we mean by altered states of consciousness? I think it's really important that we address that first of all. So the dictionary definition is that it's mental states that noticeably are different from ordinary wakefulness states. Okay, so we know what it's like when we're living our normal life. My conscious mind is online. Sometimes I might do a little bit of daydreaming, but basically I feel as though I am in full conscious thinking. Now, what happens when we alter that state is that we have changes in our thinking patterns and in the way that we express emotions. When we alter our state, what we're able to do is then change our perceptions of time, change our perception of situations, change our perception of ourselves. And it can be, for example, that you did, let's say, a meditation or a breath work for 30 minutes to an hour, and it felt like just a couple of minutes. That often happens with lots of my students and graduates in the Influential Breathwork Academy. It also can give you, and this is the big appeal, a sense of oneness with the universe, a sense of your own personal power within living your life, but also this connection with something else, something outside of you, something with the fabric of the universe. And that's a really powerful, expansive way to be, because when we have those experiences, it opens us up to so much potential in the way that we're living our day-to-day life. It can also change your sense of self. It can really help you have much more confidence, more freedom in the way that you're thinking. And again, these things together, this connection with something greater than you and this connection with yourself, can free you up to have much more enjoyable and adventurous aspects of your own life. So examples of this then. So we know that we can get this from types of meditation. We can get it from types of hypnosis. Well, in fact, all hypnosis, where we're going into that trance state. We can also achieve altered states of consciousness by taking various drugs, both legal and illegal. People often can have altered states of consciousness from near-death experiences, and also when we achieve flow state. Now, flow state is, I'm sure you've been there, when all of a sudden everything just makes sense. You're focused on that piece of work. You could keep going for hours and hours and hours because you are right there. And that's an amazing state to be in. And often to get the flow state, it's a different kind of breathing exercise to get these longer journeys, if you like. Also, mystical experiences or some kind of spiritual experiences can do that as well. So these occur naturally. They can occur just as we go about our everyday life, and then something happens. We have a moment where it feels like everything's expanded and changed. They can be intentionally induced, or they can occur spontaneously. Now, obviously, with breath work, we're kind of doing it with that intentional aspect of wanting to take us out of our everyday world, how we're seeing and behaving and thinking and feeling, to make a change for the better, which is why breath work can be so transformative. So what I found really interesting is that for millennia, people have been playing with breathwork, with the breath, to have altered states. You know, we look at tribal rituals, for example, and some of the practices that they were using. The Egyptians were using breath in various ways. This goes right back. But in modern times, one of the main reasons that breathwork really came to the fore was as a result of lots of research that was being done into LSD in the just before kind of Woodstock and things took off. So in the late 50s, early 60s, and was really the start of a whole new wave of thinking. And interestingly, a lot of that research was taking place in what is Silicon Valley now, which is interesting, right? Because a lot of the people who were involved in the trials or taking the LSD actually went on to found incredible companies which have influenced our world today. And the reason for that is that because they've had these mind-blowing moments where they feel like they are more, where they feel like they're really connected to the world around them and they can sense that possibility, they were able then to think literally outside the box. I mean, for me, that's exactly what when we're talking about states of consciousness, that's what we're talking about. And it's more than just having some kind of psychedelic trip for your own personal gain, because it just opens you up. This is more than something that's simply recreational. But with the LSD trials, the American government got a little bit scared and they basically banned all research into LSD, even though some of the research was massively helping with mental health. So all of a sudden, all of these research centers were just shut down overnight and not allowed to do anything. Now, this is really interesting because for some of those individuals, they weren't prepared to be stopped there. They had been seeing incredible results. So what they did is they went back through some of that research and they looked at, well, what was happening in the body caused people, what was happening immediately before they had these mind-blowing experiences that felt like it had changed the very root of them, the fabric of their lives in a positive way. What was going on? And they realized that many of these people, their heart rate increased, their breathing was much more rapid. And so they got curious about what happens if we play around with the breath in order to deliberately make these changes in the brain. So, as we know, meditation can get you to various heady heights. Psychedelics can do this. Also, being sensory deprived, being in sensory deprivation tanks can cause all sorts of things to happen to your brain. And you guessed it, breathwork, but some particular breathing exercises can help you to get to these altered states of consciousness. And it was actually this that got me really interested in breathwork in the first place. There were three things that got me interested. One was thinking outside the box after a really difficult time. Two was having a spiritual connection of some kind. And three was about self-trust. I felt like I'd made so many bad decisions that I had to come back into my body. And all I can tell you is that breathwork has delivered in bucket loads. There's so much research being done into breathwork now. And we know, even just in the last 8 to 10 years, so much more about the physiological effects on the body and the neurological changes that happen. Now, when we go into an altered state, we're actually in a different brainwave state. Okay, so we go right through the states from alpha, we go into delta, we go into theta, a theta brainwave, or say theta. I never know how you pronounce it, but you know what I mean. THETA, it's spelt. And when we're in that state, it's really deep and a lot of our conscious mind is pretty much switched off. So we're able to process trauma. We're able to have these out of body experiences and come back into our bodies much more wide open in our thinking. For me, I've had things like the first time I did a breathwork journey, I felt like I was speaking to a higher version of myself. I had the idea for exactly how I was going to incorporate breathwork with all of my NLP background. That kind of landed in my body, that knowledge, putting together all of my background experience. I knew exactly how I was going to do it from that very first breathe. I've had students and clients who feel as though they've had literally messages drop into their being, into their knowing. I've had people have huge shifts in their entrepreneurial journey because they realized that they weren't going in the right direction for their values. And I can tell you that once you've done this, you want to do it again because it is literally mind-blowing. I don't know any other phrase that sums it up any more than that. The benefits with deliberately altering your state of consciousness is that what we're doing here is we're not in control of the body, we're in control of the breathing. And of course, there's no side effects to that. Yes, there are some contraindications, but when you do a breathwork journey, you're only helping your body to heal itself, to help. And through the breath work, we're also then massively allowing the possibility for stress reduction and also emotional healing through the processing of trauma. Many people increase their self-confidence, increase their sort of self-awareness of how they're viewing the world, and that there are other options available to them. So it can take them from a feeling of being very stuck to being able to be much more creative in how they deal with everyday life. It allows people to play around with their own creativity in their everyday life. And very often people want to either journal or even draw or paint after they've done a breathwork experience. And in fact, some breathwork modalities encourage you to create mandalas immediately after, where you're drawing out a representation of the colors and the patterns that you may well have seen. Now, not everyone sees patterns and colors, and that's okay, but a lot of people do experience a kind of fusing with something greater and higher, fusing with the universe. Now, there are risks and precautions with these kinds of breathworks, because often they are fast-paced, and quite often they are open-mouthed breaths, which means we're predominantly breathing from our chest and telling our body that we're in a stress response. And like exercise, small amounts of stress done deliberately and intentionally is really good for us. However, you do want to make sure that you're following proper guidance and that you are aware of all of the contraindications. And any of my trainings that are out there will let you know exactly what they are. So there are dangers on certain altered states, and you've got to make sure that you're with someone who knows how to bring you back down properly, that you really are regrounded, and that you don't have certain mental health disorders or health disorders before you begin, because these breathworks are taxing on your body, but my God, they are freeing for your body, mind, and soul, and your spirit, if that is your bag. So if you want to know more about this, then follow these trainings. You can actually try out some of my conscious connected breathworks, one of which has already gone live if you're watching this just as this is released. And over time, there's going to be a whole bank that you can listen to of conscious connected breathing exercises as well, that can take you on a bit of a journey at home, but you still have to check those contraindications. So for me then, I think it's really important for people to understand that this is not something to do lightly. It's something that you really do want to understand the risks, but the benefits are huge. And for me personally, this is something that's changed my life. It makes me feel much more in touch with my body, much more in touch with my intuitive side. And at the same time, it makes me feel connected or plugged in to the universe, to a sense that my life isn't everything, right? There is so much more that I'm part of. And interestingly, because of the breath actually filling my body, and I'm really aware of that, not only does it change my brainwave state to make me feel much more open, I often know the answers to challenges that are going on in my life, but I'm also aware that what I'm breathing in, the universe, we're taking in the fabric of the universe into our bodies, into our lungs, into giving us energy. And as we breathe out, we are also giving back to the universe. So these things work, these breathwork exercises work in terms of what they're doing to your brain, chemicals that are then released in your brain, and also the changes in the biochemistry of your blood. But more important than that, I think, is the experiences it gives you to think and behave differently. This stuff is super powerful. And what I would love is that any of you watching who have had an altered state of consciousness and had a really deep breathwork session, and as a result have had some massive awakenings or experiences or insights, I'd love you to let me know below what you learned and what kind of breathwork you were doing. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe, make sure you comment, and I will see you on the next episode very soon.